What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I am joined again by Ricky, who has been on the channel in multiple videos and has also submitted multiple knives for review. So if you've been watching my channel, you'll probably be used to the sound of his voice. I want to do a quick channel update here. We're going to talk about ZT knives today, and both of our impressions and what we've come to expect from the brand and what we do or don't like about knives in general from ZT and some things on individual knives. But I want to kind of give a channel update here. So I'm kind of transitioning with a few things, and there's going to be a few weeks where I'm only going to be uploading 1 or 2 videos a week. If I have opportunities to upload more, I will. I don't want to force a video out of something that's boring just to have an upload. I'd rather have something interesting to talk about or interesting to show, and I want to make sure that I'm actually able to do that. So a lot of the videos that I will upload in this next few weeks are going to be discussion videos. I don't know that I'll have a whole lot of new knives, but if I do, if I do end up with one, of course I'll upload a video. But anyways, just wanted to give that so that people knew, who are subscribed, what's going to be happening here. But anyways, we have a bunch of knives that have already been shown on the channel, and we're going to use them to kind of represent ZT. We have the ZT-0303, which is, of course, Greg's, one of my other coworkers, his daily user. You can see that this has got quite a bit of wear on it. We have Rob's 0562, which also has been used quite a bit. Great example. My new 0909, this is the second time I've owned this, for those of you who did not watch that video, and Ricky's 0095. I had to flip that one because I love the action on it. So, zero tolerance. The reason that I really, really love zero tolerance is they seem to, and everybody has different experiences with this. It may be that you bought a zero tolerance and you weren't happy with it right off the bat. I've owned a ton of ZT knives, and I've come to expect excellent fit and finish, centered blades, great solid lockup, and just great functionality and break-in over time. Every time that I purchase a knife, and for the materials you get and what you pay, I think they offer some excellent folding knives. ZT has both had a reputation in the past for making knives too overbuilt, and then also on the flip side of that, here recently people are kind of complaining that they're coming away from their roots and making thinner, more EDC-friendly knives that are more geared towards cutting performance. And I want to point this out before we stop talking. ZT still offers both types of knives in their lineup. You can get hard use knives, you can get lighter use knives, you can get knives with a thinner profile that are more geared towards cutting performance that are still large, or you can get big old thick crazy things. Some of the knives on the table are going to be, or on this console here, are going to be discontinued, like the 0909, and I don't know about this guy. This guy seems to come and go, but ZT offers a wide spread in terms of, their price range, materials, the types of knives that you would use for different tasks, and I appreciate that. And some people have a love-hate relationship with ZT. I am constantly interested in what ZT is coming out with. I love seeing the new designs, and I love kind of, just drooling over ZT's new stuff. Some designs they've come out with I'm not super interested in, and some I am. Ricky, since I've been talking for 4 solid minutes now, I want to ask you, this was your first high-end knife ever.
It is.
So what is your impression of ZT out of all the ones that you've handled?
Well, I think I'm a little bit biased starting off just because that was my first high-end knife. But it seems like they all, like you're kind of saying, it seems like they come perfect. And the action is pretty solid even when you just start. But then it wears in really well over time.
Yes.
But the only other knives I've owned are Spyderco's, which also tend to be pretty awesome right out of the box. So I don't know if I have enough knife diversity to give a good opinion on comparing brands, because right now I'm basically between ZT and Spyderco.
Yeah. Yep. That's a fair point. And a lot of the reason that I have Ricky here is he is new to the hobby and the whole enthusiast thing with knives, but I like getting his perspective because yeah, you know, it's like I've said in previous videos, I've turned into kind of a snob who doesn't use knives very much. Ricky's not a snob yet when it comes to knives, but he uses his knives more readily, and his perspective is unique in that way. And I like the discussion that we have between each other. He said something about the action, how well they break in, and that's definitely true. We have that video about buttery smooth action and how to achieve a really great action in a folding knife. And if the knife's tolerances are great from the factory, they will achieve an excellent break-in if you are being kind to it and not, you know, beating the absolute crap out of it. Rob's 0562 is a great example. Keep in mind, this is the knife I was talking about the other day that is always like kind of caked up and gunked up, and he doesn't really clean this. It's actually on camera, it looks pretty clean, but Rob just kind of uses this knife, and I want to use this as an example of just how unbelievably smooth this thing is now. You can't actually feel the bearings in this thing anymore. It just kind of falls. Whereas my brand new 0909, you can still kind of feel the bearings kind of, you know, well, it's actually the detent ball trying to figure out, you know, where it wants to wear its track, or it's trying to even out those spots on the blade that are a little bit more rough, that it's you know, it's just trying to kind of wear in. You can still feel it grinding a little bit there, but once they break in, they generally end up just like this 0562, and they get unbelievably smooth where there's absolutely no sound whatsoever.
So what is that when you close the 0909? There is that initial noise right there. What is that?
So partially it's, I would imagine it's one of the bearings where, you know, they're kind of trying to wear that track in, and there's varying levels of smoothness where that track is. And then there's also, I would imagine, somebody who's a knife expert might be able to clarify in the comments section, but it's also the detent ball riding on the blade. A lot of times you look in there, you can see sort of this U-shaped line where it's riding on there, and it's also attempting to smooth out. So you might hear right there.
Yeah.
That part.
Because that goes away on the 0562.
That went away completely on this knife. And there's a little bit still in yours. Yeah, you can still hear it a little bit. But comparatively, this one versus my 0909, you can do it. This is substantially smoother than this one. When you close it. Now do mine, and you'll be able to feel a little bit more of a grind, like the you see what I mean? Yeah. So that's normal to expect that from a ZT, and then that, you know, it gradually goes away, like this one is in the process of, and this one has completely achieved over the course of about 2 years, and actually sooner than that. It actually this achieved that smoothness after, I don't know, like 6 months or so. Every knife is different, and of course these are all different models, and they all have varying levels of use. We're not giving this guy much love because it's an assisted one and it's not on bearings. But varying levels of use, you know, the user's maintenance levels are different, but knives generally, when they're treated properly, will achieve this amazing break-in period. Not just DT, Spyderco's a good example of that too, and so is Benchmade to a point, though I really love just how unbelievably satisfying the action and the disengagement and retraction of a ZT is. By the way, these have all maintained excellent centering over time. Let's see if we can get a good close-up there. All of these are perfect or very, very near perfect. I think Rob's is, well, his is centered. My 0909 is also centered, possibly favoring a little tiny bit to the lock side, but pretty darn close. And then Greg's 0303 is also perfectly centered, though it's thrown off by the G10 scale being thicker on one side. Also, I'll point out all of these are still locking up pretty early and solid. You can see there on the 0303. Rob's, I know 100% has not moved. You can go back and watch the old video. It still has engaged. His has engagement at about 80% on the lock bar insert. Mine, of course, is brand new, and it's locking in the same place my old one did. Though there's no lock bar insert because it's a steel liner lock. And then yours with a thinner bar, but still the engagement with the... Yours is a lot harder to see on camera.
Yeah, it is.
You're going to have to trust me on this one. The steel lock bar insert on this in my light is locking up at about 80% engagement. And when I say that, I mean it looks different than the 0562, but in terms of how much the lock bar is engaging, the steel lock bar insert is engaging the tang, these are both 80%, but this one has a thicker actual lock bar, so it looks to be earlier. But that's what you want. And lots of arguments about whether or not a lock bar insert is a good locking mechanism, or whether it helps or actually creates a disadvantage. I've never actually had an issue with a lock bar insert. You use this. Have you ever had your lock bar disengage on you?
Never.
Yeah, that's my experience with them. And I would imagine there's, obviously there's more of a chance that it's going to disengage if you're creating pressure this way. And I don't know. Again, it depends on what you're using the knife for and stuff like that. Whether or not you should be concerned with that type of thing. Somebody pointed out recently, and that a titanium lock face without an insert is actually less likely to disengage than a steel lock bar insert. And I didn't know anything about that and did some research on it. And it turns out, for the most part, that is true. That is the case. However, it's also the geometry of the lock face and the chip or the tang, how it's the geometry of it. All of that plays a role in how likely something is or is not to disengage, which just adds kind of further confusion to all of that and complexity. And I don't know if we really need to go into that, but my point is I've never had a ZT fail or come in a condition that was questionable as to whether or not the knife could be used and trusted over time. And I find that to be very consistent with ZT. Amongst the 15 to 20 ZT knives I've owned since I got into knives, they have all been, perfect. If, and if there was something that was a little off, it was like 0.01% imperfect. It was some little tiny thing, like one of the screws had a mark on it, and I was like, nah. Like it was something really dumb like that only a snob like me would actually look at and care about. But I just love ZT's quality control. I love the action. I mean, how have we not talked about this yet? I'm sure there are people that are going to watch this video. They're like, how have they not brought up the flipping action of a ZT? We've talked about that. We just barely mentioned it in the video. Pretty much the standard for a good flipper and a good detent in this general price range, and honestly all the way up to, like, in my experience, like $500 or $600, ZT has the best flipping action that you're gonna find. Yeah. And you hear this from a lot of YouTubers, knife makers coming into the game. If you want a good example of what people appreciate in a good flipper, look to ZT, because their detent and action are perfect. Oh my gosh. I've heard that you can't find better flipping action in a knife, and of course widely varying opinions, until you get up near, above the $600 or $700 mark. And like Shirogorovs are supposed to have really, really good flipping action that are considered better than ZT. But in this price range, where most people are going to look for like their first premium knife, your flipping action is just going to be incredible. Again, this guy doesn't count because it's assisted, but yeah, it's got great action nonetheless. But they're so consistent. You seem to always have exactly the right level of detent for the dimensions of the knife that you're getting, and the action complements that, or the smoothness in which the knife actually swings into the lock position is so good. It's unique on every knife, but it seems to be perfectly dialed in for each one, and it's very satisfying. Actually, I think that's, again, I'm going off talking, not letting you talk, but would you say that the flipping action on a ZT is satisfying?
I would say it's extremely satisfying. I think, in my opinion, they flip better than the Hinderers that you've had, that I've actually handled. There's some of them that I haven't, but I think they flip better, but it could be, is it the Hinder that has a harder detent, or that it takes a while to get used to, or is that the opposite?
It's the opposite, actually, and you're not the only person. This is why I like having Ricky here, because, I mean, again, case in point, he's newer to this. He's handled Hinders, he's handled ZTs, and in this case, a ZT Hinder, and is easily able to tell ZTs, despite Hinders having upped their game on their detent and flipping action, still aren't quite where ZT is in terms of flipping action. And you're correct, the Hinders don't quite flip as well. You said something else that I was going to talk about, but anyways, it's a very satisfying feeling, and they've got it nailed. It's very unlikely that you're going to get a ZT brand new that's going to have an issue or that's not going to feel good, even if you're not used to knives of this caliber. You know, if you're used to buying $50 knives and you decide, hey, you know what, that ZT-0562 looks awesome, I'm going to spend $200 on it, you're not going to be disappointed with it. In my experience, the ZT-0562 was my first real high-end knife. I had some lower-end Benchmades, but I think this is in a different caliber. And I had it, and I was worried about buyer's remorse. I was like, oh, when I get it, am I going to be satisfied with it? Is it going to feel like a $200 knife? Yeah, this feels like a $200 knife if you're a knife enthusiast, or if you're just into knives in general. Definitely, it's incredibly satisfying. It feels like it's worth the money you spent on it, and you're going to be happy with its performance all the way around. On top of that, ZT does not seem to be stuck with one type of blade steel. Like one of the, like, not to say that S30V is a bad blade steel, but like in terms of Spyderco, you see S30V on like everything. Mm-hmm. And then you only see varying blade steels on sprint runs. ZT kind of likes to play with a bunch of different stuff. We've got S30V, LMAX, S35VN, and S35VN, whereas you can get this version in S90 that's, I don't know if it's a sprint or a semi-production. I think it's a sprint. You can get this in a production version that's 20 CV. But there's a whole bunch of different stuff. You see, your CTS, you see CTS 204P, which is actually the same thing as 20 CV and M390. And you see, is it, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like CTS XHP is actually offered on a couple of things, but they do a whole bunch of different blade steels. They do your G10, your titanium, they do carbon fiber, which is a lot like, other setups or other manufacturers, but they do different finishes. You've got black wash, or this is like a black acid wash, your G10, a G10 textured variants. They offer so many different styles and looks and materials and things like that. You can kind of get what you want, though the one thing they are pretty much stuck on is flippers.
Yeah,
they
definitely are
pretty much going to get a flipper from Zero Tolerance.
Do they have any that aren't flippers besides, I think, do they have fixed blades?
They have some fixed blades, okay, yeah.
But as far as folding knives, do they have any that aren't flippers?
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, the 0303 is one of the only ones I've seen that actually has a thumb stud that's meant to be used like a thumb stud. Some people argue that you can use these things on the 0562 as thumb studs, but they're not really. They're more locking lugs or bracing lugs for the frame. But you're pretty much gonna get a flipper, and that makes sense considering ZT has kind of made a name for themselves as flippers. And we're not talking down, we're not saying like ZT is better than all other American high-end production brands ever, and you should never consider anything other than a ZT. But where Ricky and I have like varying opinions on things, like I'm a huge fan of Hinder and I can justify a $425 knife, but Ricky, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing you're not at the point where you're able to justify a Hinder purchase.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, and that's okay. Everybody's different, and I want to point out that I'm widely accepting of everybody's opinions and things like that, and I think they're healthy. As many arguments as there are for the knife world, I think it's healthy to just accept that different knives are good, or better or worse for different people, for different preferences. Spyderco makes excellent ergonomic functional designs, and while they may be less aesthetically appealing to some people than a Zero Tolerance, they definitely function well.
They do function quite well.
Yes. If you're looking for a little more spice or a little more cool factor, and you enjoy the idea of a titanium frame lock with bearings that has excellent flipping action, and maybe you want something a little more exotic in terms of steel or for whatever reason, ZTs do a good job of making you feel really good about your purchase. Whether or not they actually, it's really hard to say, is this $200 0095, is it going to offer, or it's actually a $220 knife.
I think so.
Does it offer that much more in terms of cutting ability than your Spyderco Paramilitary 2 at $130?
Probably not.
Probably not. But I mean, like, you wouldn't have made this purchase if you didn't enjoy this knife aesthetically and for its function, right?
Exactly.
So even knowing that this is $100 more, and then you may not get $100 more cutting performance, are you still happy with that ZT?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It feels a little more premium, and that could be just because it has the titanium scales instead of my Spyderco that has the G10. I don't know if that's what makes it feel more premium, or if it's just because I like to flip it out.
Right.
And obviously my PM2 does not have a flipper.
Right.
Something about aesthetics, though, that I kind of realized, I haven't spent a lot of time with Rob's 0562, but I see a bunch of them online, and I feel like they always look terrible. Like, whatever it is, when you have a picture of it, it looks like this big, bulky knife. And when you actually see it in person, it's a lot slimmer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, your 0909 is still pretty bulky, but even that, I feel like, and maybe this is for all knives, but I feel like they look a lot worse in pictures than they do in person.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. That's another thing where Rob and I as much as a snob as I am, and as much as concern as I have for like edge geometry and ease of carry, you would think that I would always prefer a thinner knife to a more bulky knife. But for whatever reason, I'm one of those people that really likes a big, chunky, crazy overbuilt knife just because, and I'm not saying that I carry these, but like for whatever reason I'm drawn to them. Like, holy cow, that thing's so big. Look at that. It's so
massive.
Cool. To me, this makes way less sense to carry, but I still appreciate it for the unique monster that it is. There's just something like, wow, what the heck, But Ricky, you tend to prefer, even aesthetically, a thinner profile knife. Like, that's more appealing to you, right?
Absolutely.
Then that's cool. I like hearing about different, reasons, because I always thought, like, in my mind, for whatever reason, when I got into this, like, why would you not want the biggest, baddest,
Exactly.
most monstrous thing? And then I get more into it, and then I'm like, well, that's the reason why, is because it's heavy and massive, and this does not cut as well as the 0095. Actually, it doesn't cut nearly as well as any of the ones on the table. It's super cool, and honestly, if you were to put all of these through the gauntlet until they fell apart, this one might be the last one to fall apart just because it's so. You would assume that, maybe not. There's a bunch of different reasons why any one of these would excel at different tasks, but being ultra overbuilt, which is something to be said even for ZT, because these are all pretty overbuilt, doesn't necessarily make it better. Depends on what you're going to use it for, your preferences, things like that. There are a lot of situations where the 0095, a lot of like strict, if we're talking about strict cutting performance, I think my vote would go to that one. Because that, the way that the blade's shaped, how thin it is behind the edge, how thin the stock starts out, and just the overall shape. I mean, this thing is like really set up to cut. But different knives for different scenarios. ZT, for the most part, I think has a knife for everybody. And if you're willing to spend the money, I think you would be satisfied. And we're hardly the first people to say
No.
that. But I don't know. Is there anything else that I, like, while I've been talking, you've only talked for about 30 seconds in this whole video. Is there anything else that you really, really appreciate about ZT knives that we haven't talked about?
I kind of like how, obviously I like when knife makers do some kind of crazy things just because they're different and you get some unique things. But ZTs, it seems like they're all really similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of nice. Like, when you're getting a ZT, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
You're going to get something that flips great, like we talked about. And even just the size, they're all remotely similar. But I just really like how they all kind of have the same feel in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely true. If you get one ZT and you like it, you're going to enjoy a lot of ZT's line while still getting that it's a new knife feeling. You know, you get to appreciate ZT's qualities that are similar amongst a lot of their knives. And as you can see here, it's like Ricky pointed out, similar in length, with this guy being the elephant in the group. But you still get to enjoy its subtle differences. You know, we flip these over, and you see just between the 0909 and the 0562, there's big differences there in functionality, though they still feel roughly the same. So if you prefer one steel or locking mechanism to another, or one look to another, there are differences, you know, slight differences, but enough to make you go for one knife over a different one when choosing a zero tolerance. And these are only 4 knives in their lineup. They have a ton of knives. Ricky, you never got to handle my 0392, the black one, and I don't know why I ever got rid of that one, but that is one of my favorite knives that ZT has ever produced. And you know, Ricky, I think you've just seen pictures, but
well, I think I saw that one in person.
Oh yeah, you did. That's right.
When I first started out here, that was the knife he had.
Yeah.
And I was pretty blown away by it. But now that I kind of know what to look for a little bit more, I'm a little disappointed you don't still have it, because I think I'd appreciate it a little bit more now. But
yeah, definitely. But I don't know. I like their factory custom line. You know, people argue, are they worth the money? That's an argument that's been blasted in the ground. If you've got around $200 to spend on a folding knife, definitely look at ZT. They're not for everybody. I'm not gonna say, you know, if you didn't buy a ZT with your $200, then you made a bad choice, but definitely take a look at them. They are consistent enough with quality and function that they are worth a look. And I just really love ZT. And again, I'm somebody who's owned multiple knives in the $500 to $1,000 range, and I still find myself coming back to ZT. So I don't know, I just really appreciate them. I felt like this was a good opportunity to go over a brand that we both really like. So, but anyways, I hope this video was entertaining. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. And if you'd like to check out my other content, I do have lots of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel. There will be more content coming in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.